Morning, everybody. Welcome to June 13th, 2023 meeting of Henderson County Court. As always, we're glad you're with us. And for those watching online, we're glad you're with us today as well. And we will begin, as we always do, with an invitation in Reverend Charles Johnson of Greater Norris Chapel Baptist Church is with us to lead us in prayer.
Good morning, sir.
Certainly, as we pray, we want to keep the Comer family, Brother Kenny and Sister Angela and the entire family in our prayers for their loss this week. Father, we thank you for this day and for this gathering, as we are good stewards of our time, resources, and our effort. We thank you for the business at hand. We ask that you govern this board and watch over their decisions and lead and guide and direct them. We pray for our good friend, the Comer family, and their loss of their son, and we're praying for them as navigate through these storms, for we know that earth has no sorrow that heaven cannot heal. We thank you for all of the festivities that are about to embark upon our community, and we pray for safety and enjoyment, and as we enjoy the comforts of relationships and good times, we pray that things would be done decently and in order. And we ask all these things in thy name, in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend, and thank you very much for mentioning the Comers. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Master Southern.
Here.
Master Tompkins.
Here.
Master Putman.
Here.
Master Starks.
Here.
Master Berry.
Here.
Say here.
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay. Sorry.
Here. I didn't hear it.
Gentlemen, you have before you the minutes of the May 23rd, 2023 fiscal court meeting. After a period of review, I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any corrections, clarifications, or additions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Good list of work this morning, and we'll lead it off with Mr. Tad Dickel from our friend River in Evansville, and I've worked with Tad before on a library planning sessions that turned out very well. It's good to get him back, and he has another prospect for us to consider, Arcadia Towers, and turn it over to you, Tad.
Sure. Thank you, Brad, and thank you, members of the fiscal court, for giving this time today. In my work as a consultant, one of the I often work with government agencies, schools, churches, as Brad mentioned, library, and many of my clients are trying to figure out ways to increase revenue. And so one of the interesting partnerships that I've made recently is with Arcadia Towers, and wanted to bring this to your attention. One of the things I've seen from like government entities or schools, churches, is that in addition to revenue source, they're all also thinking about safety and making sure that there's connectivity. So if there's emergency responders, that people have access with their cell phones. Having a high school before, I know that many schools, when there are active shooter drills, they instruct students to not use their phone during an emergency, make sure that they don't clog up phone lines for first responders. And so this is a piece that's really important to consider with expanding cell towers. So one of the things that we've seen with the switch from 4G to 5G infrastructure is that the signal's faster, but it actually covers about half the radius of a traditional 4G tower. And so there is a need over the next several years to expand the number of towers really throughout the United States. And so what we did was with Arcadia Towers, which is based in Cincinnati, we looked at properties. Brad and I had an initial conversation, and we looked at the county properties, the 4 parks, and we saw that potentially there were 2 spaces that would be deemed as viable candidates for a cell tower. That the signal there is low enough that there would be interest from the major carriers to build there. And so we wanted to share that information with you today, and share about the process of what this might look like. And it could be an opportunity for better connection to mobile network for the community. Hopefully it will lead to better safety, and then also a new source of revenue for the county. Now, has John logged in yet, Brent?
I'm here.
All
Can
right.
you hear me?
Hey, John?
Hi there.
And I'm here with John Rolander. He's based in Cincinnati, and he can share a little more detail in terms of the actual what the partnership would look like. But John, I just shared a little bit about this switch from 4G to 5G. Arcadia Towers, this slide has a little more information about the company, but has a lot of expertise and experience in the industry, and is partnered, as you can see on this slide, with various entities throughout the United States. And fortunately, we're seeing a lot of growth. And so, right now, we're probably going to have some more blue states on this graph in future presentations. A lot of experience, over 500 tower sites in more than 20 states right now. And we've primarily, with this arrangement, we look at partnering with government entities, schools, parks, sometimes police, fire stations. And so based on my proximity in Evansville, we thought it was definitely worth a conversation, and wanted to entertain this option with you. And then I wanted to share a little bit. I'm sure you're very aware of this. Like, we're seeing rapid growth in terms of mobile access, and it's not just phones; it is tablets and laptops. And we anticipate continued growth in the coming years. As I mentioned, public safety, and this slide's a few years old, but we know probably over 90% of 911 calls are made on mobile devices, and they're going to need access to a network to do that. A little bit about Arcadia's process. What they do is they use a very sophisticated software that they've invested in, that's also used by the major carriers, and they look at properties, and they look at the signal on those properties. As you can see on this slide, it lists the major carriers in that little box on the right, and the red is bad, the green is good coverage. And so, for example, this slide of Basket Recreation Park, we have poor coverage, especially from Verizon, and a little bit of coverage from AT&T and T-Mobile. And so what they do is, based on what that coverage looks like, they can make a pretty good prediction of whether the major carriers would want to install equipment on a new tower. And so that's why, like, Basket was identified as a viable property, and so was the Sandy Lee Watkins Park also. So those are, and we looked at the four parks that Brad shared names with us. And then, so here are the numbers we deemed, 2 viable candidates. And then, John, I'm going to turn it over to you if you want to talk a little bit about the financial information here.
Thanks, Tad, and appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody. A little bit about this slide, the screenshot of the, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little echo, so I'm just trying to torque that down a little bit. But the screenshot that shows the map area, that's only one of many, many ways we look at communities. And some of those measurements are very specific, showing coverage. And it's really 4G coverage that we're analyzing. The switch to 5G is going to be really important for all of us in the future, which is sort of the basis for Arcadia's thesis in partnering with cities and counties, school districts, et cetera. We know that there needs to be more towers to build out this coverage mesh network to share this important type of data. But a lot of those settings that we use to measure what the carrier's coverage is given to us by their engineers. So we sort of set our filters at their bare minimums that they would deem acceptable coverage. This helps us in a digitally driven way analyze locations that their engineers would be focusing on for future deployments. And so what we've really done is try to objectively score locations for potential site development where we would invest our money on behalf of this community. This slide here is a bit of a snapshot of the revenue component, which is obviously usually one of the first things we talk about before we really focus in on the public safety and the connectivity piece of it. What you're seeing here is this is a single tower with 2 tenants. And even though there are really 4 national carriers and some other regional opportunities to deploy people here, we're just building a model to be conservative for 2 tenants. Maybe we'd be lucky enough to get more over a period of time. But we're taking this look at this 2250, which based on is an average rent for this particular region in this part of the country. It could be higher, it could be lower, but we've analyzed hundreds of leases just within this market area. And this is, so we're just trying to pick a conservative number to build our model off of. We share in our public-private partnership 25% of the gross monthly rent that, say, AT&T and Verizon would pay Arcadia to be located on our tower. That translates into $563 a month to Henderson County, or a little over $1,000 for 2 tenants. That's a little over $13,000 per year. These leases that the carriers pay to Arcadia are very standardized. They escalate at 2% a year. They reset that calculation every 5 years. There's 5 renewal terms. So over a 30-year typical lease, that gross monthly rent and the 25% share of it for Henderson County translates over to over almost $550,000 over a 30-year term. That revenue could be pledged against some form of debt service of your own. It could be used, it's totally unencumbered. Please remember that this does not include any investment on Henderson County's. Arcadia funds 100% of all capital expenditure for the construction and ongoing maintenance and marketing efforts for the tower. This bottom box is a securitization option. If Henderson County would like to monetize a portion of their lease, we have the balance sheet to do that. You could do it externally. We would want you to come to us first. But if, for example, you wanted to carve out 10 years of that 30-year lease, the net present value of that stream of payments is about a little over $88,000. So think of it this way, once the tower is built and there's 2 tenants on it, if you want to get prepaid rent for 10 years, we'll execute the securitization and write a check to Henderson County for $88,000.
Thank you, John. And then I wanted to,
Ted, you're muted, I think.
can you hear me now?
Got it.
Yeah, I think I'm muted in the Zoom, so John probably can't hear me.
I got you. Sorry about that.
Okay, so and then if you look at this, the following slide, if we actually went forward with 2 towers, this is just basically doubled numbers in terms of rent, and over a 30-year period being approximately over $1 million for Henderson County. So I wanted you to just share that. I don't need to spend a lot of time on this, and we will, share these details with the fiscal court after today. And then this is just kind of a summary slide. I think it's important to talk a little bit about what the process might look like, and decided to enter into an agreement with Arcadia. And so hopefully you can hear me again, John, if you want to talk a little bit about that master marketing agreement process.
Yeah, thanks. So this is the agreement that actually has the ground lease and the form of option lease embedded in the agreement. But what this agreement does, it enables us to have exclusive marketing rights to the carriers for a minimum of 5 years with some renewal options after that. That gives us the opportunity to market these properties to the carriers, but it doesn't grant Arcadia the authority to just come in and build a tower on any one of these properties wherever we want. It requires us to, once a wireless carrier determines the need, their interest in being on one of your properties, the master marketing agreement requires us to come back and propose an exact location to the county. Say in the corner of this property, here's what the tower is going to look like, where the easement and access roads would be, how the fencing around the compound would be, all the pertinent information, very granularly about exactly where that would be. That's a collaborative process that Arcadia takes up with Henderson County and the carriers. And so if you could determine to not support that and we'd move on, or once we all agree about where that location is, then we enter into the site lease agreement. We simultaneously do the zoning and permitting. That can be a collaborative process with Henderson County and your local zoning board. That's also, during this process, we're doing environmental and engineering studies on the property. That is happening simultaneously. Once we clear those hurdles and get on the other side of the EPA, et cetera, then we begin the site development, and we would collaborate and coordinate that with the county to not interfere. Say, for example, if we're in a park, we're not going to interfere with any of the activities, et cetera. So that's another collaborative process. But once we get through the lease agreement and execute the ground lease agreement and simultaneously sign the lease agreement with carriers, all of that is laid out sequentially in the master marketing agreement. So effectively, that master marketing agreement, we're agreeing ahead of time to the ground lease and the business terms of the lease and how we're going to pay Henderson County. But so these steps flow pretty quickly. The things we cannot control are when the wireless carrier determines their needs. We know that their budgets for 2023 are pretty much fully accounted for. And so part of our thought process is to try to, jump in ahead of their 2024 planning process, which is occurring as we speak. The site lease agreement is, again, that's a two-way street. That's us facing and executing the agreement embedded in the master marketing agreement, and us negotiating what the rents are with the carriers. So that $2,200 average rent, maybe we get lucky and it's higher. It could be a little bit lower, but that is something that we've got a lot of experience and expertise in doing it. And the zoning and the permitting, if the zoning is, our experience is that a lot of communities, their zoning was written 20-something years ago or more in a lot of cases. And so we have counsel that we partner with that has a lot of experience here, and we'd be happy to collaborate, with your local zoning folks. If your zoning regulations, need to be updated a little bit, we can help collaborate on the language that would give the county a little more flexibility in moving forward, and protect your own properties. And then the site development process, again, that's once we dig a hole and start pouring concrete, that process can get done in as little as a a few months. So I guess that's it on the process, Ted. I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thank you, John. And then in terms of the tenant lease terms, there that are specified in the master marketing agreement, there's a 5-year initial term. And then that includes 5-year renewals. So there's like a 30 years in that the lease terms. And so and then so kind of next steps. So we've done market analysis, and the next step would be, if you have interest in moving forward, would be to execute the master marketing agreement. And then Arcadia would get started in terms of marketing to the major carriers. So I'd open it up for any questions from the fiscal court, and we'll do our best to answer any questions that you have. I know there's a lot of information here.
I'll start it off. Tad, explain why you and Arcadia believe that with municipalities or nonprofits who own land is a little bit more advantageous or creates easier processes than trying to private landowners.
Well, that's a great question. I think in our experience, we're always seeing municipalities and schools, churches looking for additional revenue source. And there's also a general sense about like responsibility in terms of the surrounding area. So I think most residents now are really thinking about living in a place that they have good connectivity, and that is an important characteristic. And so we think that that's a value. The other thing is just the general location. For example, if we partnered with somebody that had the space, like in an agricultural setting, maybe they're probably not going to be close enough to a large percentage of the population for it to be valuable for a carrier to build on.
And what's the typical footprint?
The footprint, John, you want to talk about the footprint?
In most cases, a 50-foot by 50-foot compound, on average is what we typically seek. And it depends. I mean, we can get pretty creative depending on what the requirements for that location are. Is it in the corner of a property? We really need enough space for the foundation, for the power grids to come in. There's typically a shelter. And each of these carriers that would deploy on the tower, and there are 4 national wireless carriers, and there is some regional carriers. They all have their own equipment, backup generators, etc. So 50 by 50 is an approximation of what a minimum would be. We can do a smaller footprint than that, but our experience in the last year or so has been it's typically not more than that. So hopefully that answers the question.
How do you handle maintenance and issues that come up, safety, service, otherwise, and what's your response to them on that?
So Arcadia is responsible for 100% of maintenance of the facility, and we have national contractors. We can work and contract with local vendors if you choose. We could even offer to pay your maintenance folks, but we have some very specific criteria for maintaining the compound. And typically it doesn't need a lot of care, depending on what location it is. These being parks, for example, we may landscape around the outside perimeter or do shadow box fencing. That's something that, again, we'll go through in a collaborative process when we're making the site candidate proposal to Henderson County. But 100% of those costs are Arcadia's responsibilities.
Thank you.
Couple thoughts here I had when I first met with Tad and the team at Arcadia was, number one, as you all know, we will be losing some lease revenue out at Sandy Lee Park. And this revenue could help replace that to a point, to plowing funds back into the parks to help do the sorts of things we were doing with previous lease revenue. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, for the folks whose districts these towns lie in, both Basket and Hebbardsville sometimes have signal issues, especially with some of the odd carriers. Is that correct? I mean, do you hear that?
There's spotty, of course, there's a lot that goes into it, but I agree.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, those are two troubled areas throughout the county.
Yeah, so this would help in that regard. And I was, interested to see the possibility of prepaid revenues to handle a big project we might have at Sandy Lee or something like that. So a couple of the questions I had, the concerns I had were having some influence on where these were located within a park. Sandy Lee is a larger facility. It may not be as tough to find a place to put this in park that size, but Basket's very small. So working with them, if we went this far, to find an acceptable spot, 50 by 50 is not a small little area in a park like Basket. But I'm sure it could be worked out if we decided to pursue this. So I think it's worth considering. Does anybody else have questions?
I just wanted to ask if I understood correctly. You said, you talked earlier about 5G, pardon me, that these towers would initially be 4G.
Yeah, so what's driving this change is the switch to 5G. John, you want to cover that one?
Sure. So typically, if you are traveling now and you see a 5G signal on your phone, it's probably a 5G signal through a 4G radio. And as Tad mentioned, the 4G radius is roughly a mile and a half. Depends on how much capacity is surrounding that particular antenna structure. 5G, the data is so much more exponentially more compact and has so much more capacity, but the signal only propagates about half the distance. It's about a half a mile radius in its best cases. So what the industry is doing now is the term they use is called densification. And that means they're just filling in these gaps that we've already identified with additional tower structures. So what we would suggest is what we expect to happen is if we build a tower and say AT&T, wants to co-locate on our tower right away, they would put a combination of equipment on there that's 4G and 5G. And ultimately, when the network mesh is built out, and this may take several years, the true switch to 5G cannot occur until they have enough saturation of this mesh built out for it to really work. Like when you get real 5G, it's a measurable and noticeable difference. Kind of the difference from your old TV to maybe, high def TV, I guess is one analogy I've heard used over and over again.
That's all I was wanting to make sure that these towers are going to be 5G compatible.
Yeah, that's
They're built
absolutely
with that
why.
in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have some other sites in the city or maybe working with our school district as well that you're looking at? Can you say, or
We have only had this initial conversation with me,
with the county?
but I think, if there are other interested parties in Henderson, I think we'd be more than happy to have those conversations. I think the other point I wanted to make is that we feel like it's not in terms of the timing, if you executed a marketing agreement, we think these two sites, it's not if, it's when there will be interest from the carriers. So we can't necessarily say this is going to happen, this year, next year, whenever. But we think based on the carriers' requirement to expand into rural areas, this is going to happen. It just it's kind of a matter of if and when, really a matter of when, not if. So.
One of the complaints I hear from landowners that have towers is goes back to what Taylor asked about the maintenance. I hear a lot of complaints of lack of cosmetic weeds growing up, different things that this is our, we don't want an eyesore.
Sure.
So will it be written in the contract that how it will be maintained, and will we be able to hold y'all to that?
Sure. No, I think that's a valid concern, and certainly in a parks area, we want to make sure that we're being a good partner. So, John, how have you handled that in contracts before?
It's clearly spelled out in that master marketing agreement, and within that master marketing agreement is the form of lease for the property, and it's as straightforward as we can write it. And I mean, that's a legitimate concern. Not all tower companies are created equal, and I think Arcadia has prided itself on being a good partner. Please take a look at the language within the agreement. If you feel, or your attorneys feel, that it needs to be, bolstered or robust, go ahead and redline that document so we can evaluate it. But we will, like I say, if you have a local vendor, we'll be happy to contract with them to make sure that those weeds are mitigated. And at the initial construction, let's make sure, especially in these parks, that we've done the proper siting and make sure the aesthetics meet everybody's approval. So that's the right time to handle that. And so, we want to be good partners. This is a core strategy of Arcadia's. We've entered into a lot of public-private partnership agreements just in the last, 2 to 3 years alone. I think just looking at Kentucky, we recently signed with Boone County Schools, which has 35 separate properties. That very same question came up, more than once. I'd encourage you to reach out to Matt Turner or Eric McCarter. Those are the superintendents of Boone County Schools. I'm sure they'd be happy to take your call as a reference for us. So, yeah, we intend to be good partners. Take a look at the language. I haven't met a lawyer yet that doesn't want to redline or mark up our agreement in some way. So, if you want to give special focus to that, please do. We welcome that.
Sure.
To that end, there are a couple of things that I had noticed in the master marketing agreement that had been sent to us that I
Mhm.
reviewed. There were a couple of things a bit different than your presentation.
Okay.
For example, what we were said that there were 9 5-year renewals, which would essentially make it a 50-year agreement.
Okay.
Your presentation talked about it being 30. So I was obviously curious about the change there.
John, you want to cover that?
Yeah, please, keep that in mind, that the master marketing agreement is the legal document. If, looking at this agreement, there's been some variations from community to community, something we can sort out together. Our one primary goal is that we want to have a long enough ground agreement that we can market to these carriers. They will require, and they will execute with Arcadia, a 30-year lease minimum. They'd like to go longer, but if they think there's a risk that ground lease is too short, they won't even sponsor the construction or the co-location on the tower. So we have some flexibility around that. We want you to be comfortable, collaborative, but our goal there is to have the ground secured for a long period of time. This structure and the leases are, going to probably survive all of us, in the room and on this call today. So let's make sure that we get it right for, future boards and administrations of the county. And so, that the legacy entity of Arcadia Towers, down the road, hopefully will still be the same. And so let's work through that together. But that's fundamentally the reasoning behind that.
Sure. I was just noticing a discrepancy between the presentation and what was in governing document. And obviously that's a red flag whenever I.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
And there were a few other things that I noticed in there that I think could be tightened up, particularly with regard to the maintenance.
Okay.
Maybe a little more specificity, but I assume if the decision is to move forward on this, then there'll be somebody that I can speak to.
Yeah, we would,
Right.
there's typical back and forth in terms of, legal counsel for the, and then with our legal counsel too. And so once we come to it, then we would share a final version
and
for your execution.
Regarding that, the and upkeep and things like that, or should there be trouble issues, I think it's important to have a clear escalation path that's laid out and defined with contact information that's upkept and verified.
That was one of the things that I had highlighted was
sir.
that there were several outs for the tenant, but us as the landlord didn't have many out. And if there has to be some pretty clear default, and the way default
Yes,
is
sir.
listed in there is relatively tight. So obviously, with regard to this type of agreement, particularly with long-term, you don't want somebody just capriciously bouncing out of
Right.
an agreement like this. But I think a little bit of work on those sort of
Sure.
things, we can get to something there.
Okay.
The other question for the county is just merely, and this is a decision that since this is something that we're purchasing, I don't know, and this is something I might defer to Brenda on. I don't know if it has to be bid out, but obviously it is a service. This marketing of this type of structure is something that could be bid out, and you could advertise for proposals with regard to doing something like this. And that's obviously at the discretion of the fiscal board. I don't know how many other companies are in this space right now. May not be any.
We have seen some entities, they'll put out like an RFQ or something like that. Generally, we don't see much of a response to those, but if that's what makes you most comfortable and if you feel like that's the proper interpretation of how you handle it, we certainly understand.
If I can add to that, we are proposing this is effectively an unsolicited public-private partnership proposal. And other communities in the state of Kentucky have, I think this has helped them to avoid an RFP, but perhaps that you have to engage in an RFI sort of thing or an RFQ where you might have to make some sort of public notice. I would encourage you to reach out to your own counsel. We can help collaborate with you on that. Again, we're trying to, make sure that, our collective interest being aligned for the success of this proposal and this partnership. We want to collaborate with you on the process and make sure that you've approached your community and comported with all your local rules and regulations.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Crown Castle is the other company that we're familiar with who puts up
Okay.
towers here.
Mhm.
And they have never approached with this kind of idea. Are you aware of them doing these partnerships with other municipalities or nonprofits in other parts of the country?
Ours are, very familiar with Crown Castle and other types of communities. This approach that Arcadia Towers is taking is definitely an anomaly in the tower development business, where we are proactively identifying properties using the same technology that engineers at the largest national carriers use to find what we call strategic sites. It's sort of been a Arcadia niche approach for decades. The public-private partnership is sort of born from my background in public finance for 30 years. So I'm coming at this having worked with communities for bond financings, thousands of times throughout the Midwest and many other parts of the country. But this public-private partnership approach really gives us an opportunity to work collaboratively. My experience looking at this is I don't see where tower companies have necessarily been great partners to communities and public entities especially. And so giving you an opportunity to, one, participate in the revenue rather than on a private piece of property where you get no economic benefit whatsoever, but also to partner with us and have a collective strategy on bringing ubiquitous coverage to your businesses and your residences. I mean, think of this as an essential service type of utility, much in the same way you would water and sewer or an electric utility. So our approach is a little bit disruptive from traditional site acquisition of tower development. And it's a core expertise, and a lot of the staff that we've hired to support us come from this public finance background where they have some familiarity working with communities and understand how your agendas are set, how your rules are structured, and how to build consensus and partner with you in a very long-term fashion. And so our equity raise was structured around that whole thesis where this is going to be a very, very long-term type of agreement.
Couple other things. I think you've all seen cell towers. I assume these are of similar size to the ones we all have experience with, not taller necessarily or any unusual dimensions.
In general, it's going to be similar to what you've seen in the past. We do try to, every tower is just a little bit different based on the needs in that area and what the engineers at the major carriers tell us they're going to need, but I wouldn't anticipate anything.
Unusual.
Right.
And
I would also add that heights are generally coming down a little bit than they were, say, 15 years ago or so. But that's part of that collaborative process. When a carrier comes to us because they like the geographic location, they're also going to have very specific height requirements. And that's something that we will communicate and collaborate with you when we're talking about the construction and the type of tower we're going to propose and where it's going to get located. So that's something that we don't actually know at the moment. But I think Tad's correct in saying that, a lot of these monopole constructions or other types of structures that you're familiar with seeing, they're getting better, they're getting less obtrusive, and they're getting a little better looking, if you will.
And is the 25%?
That's the rate that we've set. At this point, we can't go anywhere just based on construction costs going up. They've almost doubled in the last several years. And so that's really the rate that it makes sense for us to move forward with.
Any other questions? Any other thoughts? I think a good next step, if we are willing to do it, is to have Steve formally kind of redline this master marketing agreement, work with Representatives Arcadia to see if we can agree on certain requirements that we believe we have or that Steve notices, and then bring an updated agreement back to court, let you read it ahead of time. I know kind of springing this on you right now, and then make a decision from there. Does that give us enough of a timeline to meet your needs and also to meet ours?
I think that makes sense. I mean, we certainly want to be able to review an MMA or any kind of agreement. And if you suggested changes, you send that to us and we'll review and make sure that works with our legal counsel and how we operate as a business. And then I'd be happy to meet with you again if necessary to discuss this further. And we like to think that ultimately the timeline is it is what it is. And so I think the sooner we get in the pipeline, major carriers probably already spent their 2023 budgets in terms of new equipment. So the sooner we can get in a line, the sooner we have a chance of actually getting a tower built and starting to bring revenue to your community.
If it's agreeable, we'll move in that direction.
Sure.
One point to make, you're talking about two towers. So those financial numbers we saw were based on one. So if both towers are and successfully marketed, you can double those numbers.
Right.
So it creates enough revenue. I think it maybe so. With that,
Just real quick, you showed the basket site. Could we get those same numbers for the Sandy Lee too?
Sure. I'll share this slide to you.
That'd be great.
Presentation with Brad, and he can share it with you. Thank you for your time. Hope you have a great day. Hope we have an opportunity to work together. So look forward to you.
Thank
to
you very
hearing from
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Next, we have a resolution based on the, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to bring Ethan up from OITC to talk to us about their recommendations on rural and secondary roads. For those new magistrates, we get a certain amount of money every year from the cabinet to let them on county roads, state roads in the county And then there's a certain amount of that money that's called flex funds that they offer plan for use if we decide to let them use the money for their purposes, or we have the option of keeping that money and using it for ours on county roads. So if you introduce yourself and
Yes, sir. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to you all today. My name is Matt West. I'm the branch manager for Kentucky Transportation Cabinet District Two Project Delivery and Preservation Branch. Basically, that branch is fancy words for construction and maintenance. We maintain all of our county or state routes. In branch two, we've got two branches, Project Delivery and Preservation. Branch one covers 5 counties in the southern part of the district, and branch two covers 6 counties in the northern part of the district. The Owensboro section office covers Davis, Ohio, and Hancock counties, and the Henderson section office covers Union, Webster, and Henderson counties. Ethan is he's transferred to the Owensboro section as the section engineer over there. So he thankfully worked on this presentation, put this together. And then Mr. Kenneth Bouchery, who formerly worked in the Henderson section office several years ago, has come back and taken Ethan's spot as our section supervisor in the Henderson section. They did the work on this, so I will turn this over to them, let them present their recommendations on the rural secondary KYTC portion and our plan for the flex funds, which I will recommend you all take that money and use on your county routes. If you want to give it back to us, you can, but most other counties retain those flex funds for you for their own use. So if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer those that they don't want to answer. So I'll turn this over to Ken.
Morning, guys.
thank you. Good morning.
I'm Kenneth Bouchery. I'm the new section supervisor in Harrison County. Like Matt said, I'm new to this position, but not new to the county. I grew up here, born and raised. So.
Are you related to the winemakers?
I am related. That's my uncle and cousins run the wine in Spotsville.
You do.
And then my grandfather was a farmer in Haywardsville. My parents lived really close to one of the cell towers at Watkins Park. And I'm sure they'd love some coverage, but getting back to our roads here, in our presentation, we, this is for the 2023-2024 construction season. Here's a map of Henderson County and the state roads on it. Y'all have 229.8 center line miles of state maintained roadway, 136.5 of that is rural secondary roads. 122 state bridges and 46 rural secondary bridges.
And when you say rural secondary roads, that means not the main, like 4160, the roads often with 3 or 4 numbers to them. So.
Correct.
Okay.
And usually leading to y'all's, it's very near to, so. And this is our recommendations for Henderson County, highway forcing, asphalt resurfacing, from the 10.749 mile point to the 11.827, which is about 1.45 miles in length. We estimate that'll be around $203,000. A slightly more significant project is this Kentucky 1078 intersection realignment, which is out toward the winery in Spotsville. It's from mile point 12.489 to mile point 12.791. Basically from Race Creek Bridge to US 60 there. It's a short project, 0.3 miles, but you can see the cost there. We estimate around $430,000. And then we'll go into more depth than that here in just a second. Also, Kentucky 1078, if y'all decided to give us your flex funds, which as Matt alluded to, it makes it hard to get discretionary funds if you give those back. So it's probably best spent on your roads. But if you did give it back to us, we would spend it on 1070. Repaving from 8.797 to mile point 10.826, about 2 miles of roadway at an approximate cost of $284,000. And that's our current funds. And then Kentucky 416 there. And here's, cracking. there's deterioration. This is in the Niagara area. And then moving to Kentucky 1078 and the realignment project. This is the current section that we're discussing. If you're familiar with it, US 60, but if you're going out of town, toward Spotsville, 1078 comes in near the top of a hill there, and there's a pretty good blind spot and dangerous for school buses or anyone pulling out of there. And there's been some crash history. So we've looked at realigning this to increase that sight distance problem. The existing sight distance is 370 feet to the west, which is going up over the hill. And then toward the school, it's 495 plus feet going that way. So you've got better sight distance one way than the other. And then this was two different alternates we looked at pursuing. One was moving the road toward the top of the hill. And then another, which that allowed us to get up to 410 feet of sight distance, which 40 feet is significant, but it severely hurt the sight distance in the other direction with the way that hill is laid out. So we kept looking and came up with this alternate coming in farther down the hill, closer to the church, and I think it's Crowley's Automotive down there. And that gave us great sight distance in both directions, 495 feet to the west, going up the hill, and then 495 plus feet to the east. So we went forward with that in our design team in Madisonville, and they laid out this project. Realigning that, and that's where we got our estimate numbers for that.
Can you back up to that
Which picture? This
right
one?
there?
Yes, sir.
So right there where it's coming out, there's a road right there to the left.
It's a driveway.
Okay. That's what I need to know.
No problem. Yeah. Correct, I believe that's accurate. And we can send you more detailed plans. We've got the full plan and it's ready to go to construction. But it's really that we're increasing sight distance, increasing safety in a spot in Henderson County that needs it. Y'all know US 60 is a high traffic area. With the school nearby, especially during school season, that's always high traffic, early morning, afternoons. And then also people traveling to and from US 60 to Port Zion. And then if you did give us our rural secondary flex funds back to us, we would 1078 there from Zion toward this project. And then this is some of the current conditions in the road. Does anybody have any questions?
I've got one, that last portion of 1078 obviously needs, fixing, but keeping the flex funds for other reasons makes sense. But in this case, if we were to keep the funds, does that portion needed paving on 1078 then kind of go to the top of your list for next year?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, we like to pave the worst roads and make them the best roads. And that's kind of how our paving looks at. So being that we've already identified it as a road that needs paving, as funds become available and whatnot, it would be very near the top of the list.
We've seen a presentation about that interchange before too, haven't we?
Uh,
So that was
yeah.
that a flex fund project before it was become a.
I believe
funded
so.
thing?
Yes.
Introduced us by one colleagues.
Yeah, I bring
I thought
Ethan
that
up
was
here,
Nick's
you know.
idea.
He's again, he's more informed. I'm 3 weeks, so a little bit of levity.
You see, I've had jobs going in Owensboro and Henderson, so like I've just kind of pushed everything off on him as much as I can, but I wanted to be here for this because there is a little bit of intricacy to this. So we've been working on this project for seems like 3 years now, trying to get it pushed through, trying to get it to bid. It just kind of happens that when you start involving design, when you start involving having to purchase properties, things get really complicated. And so it's just taking a lot longer than they thought to actually get the purchase agreements for the property. Because of course we've doing it the way that actually me and Nick were looking at that alternate one, trying to do it that way would have eliminated having to go through multiple property owners. There's, of course, different complications with it, but having to go through multiple property owners gets more difficult because, different people want different things. So that's kind of why it's gotten pushed off here and there. But we can find now. I was gonna try to put it in this because we just now put out to bid last year's rural secondary, and it has a completion date of this year, so that will get done. But I wanted to make sure that when we did this presentation, since it was gonna be later in the year, that I went ahead and sent that off. That way I knew exactly how much money we had this year. It's harder to tell how much money you have when they send us the budgets for rural secondary, if you still got money left over from last year. So it's just, the money that we have this year is very accurate. So, whereas in the past years, we kind of keep carrying over this 1078. And so it's kind of harder to really predict how much money we have. But yeah, it has been in there before. I just wanted to, leave it in, represent it, kind of just remind, if we didn't forget about it, it is going to get done. It's just going to be a little bit longer.
Well, it's good to see that coming to fruition, because I understand the need. Any other question? I think it's almost certain we're going to recommend that we're going to request to keep those flex funds.
You see, they're just transparent by telling you to keep them. But I mean, when Nick was here, I mean, he was like advocating for wanting them, so I don't know. I liked his strategy. Actually got them sometimes, but there are some bridges on Kentucky Force that do still need replacing. So if in the future, if Nick and the court ever decide,
16 that still need to be, or they were started to be fixed.
yeah, so in place paving, we're starting to get all that done again. We're working on that. I actually had that in this contract, so they should be paving that as
That's
part of the
awesome. That's good to
paving
hear.
contract. It's a lot better if the paving contractor does it than our guys. I mean, it's not that they're bad at it. It's just like
No.
we don't have a
You don't have the
paver.
equipment. I get
Yeah.
it.
So.
I don't believe we decide on this right at this meeting. But we can take consensus. Send a form back that formally is keeping the flex funds, correct?
If you voted on it now, like we could technically just, do it and get the meeting minutes, but whenever you vote on it, those are the meeting minutes we need. And then I send those up. to
We
Frank.
can take a vote.
I'll move flex funds.
Second.
Okay.
When we submit this, we need to have a list of what our proposal is, send it in this. So until you decide on what actually you're gonna spend the flex on, that's when we notify them that we're keeping, here's what we.
We can get a vote though towards that. Right.
And a lot of courts choose to vote. We need to vote for we're gonna pay with our money. They do it at the same time, usually vote. That's up to y'all, but that's been done.
And I don't see, we can't take that now. Sure, Nick will come up with many ways to spend the flex funds on county roads. But if you want to, if I can get a motion to approve the state's recommendation for its funds based on this list, and then also for the county to keep its flex funds pending sending the list to state, the list of what we want to do with it.
I'll move.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. That was really quick. Any other questions? Thank you for our partnership. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, let me call Angie Gatton up. As you know, we approved spending $30,000 a year each of the next 2 years out of our opioid settlement funding to help fund an office housed at by the Women's Recovery Manor. Angie has been tabbed to run this office, and that's, I think, a choice. And before we vote to go ahead and spend that money, I thought, come up and tell us what you can expect.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am the new Community Addiction Awareness Coordinator. And I'm working with the Center for Addiction Recovery of Henderson. And I will be developing and initiating community education program that the memorandum of understanding is going to describe. But I wanted to give you a synopsis of what our ideas are and why. Prevention is critical to reducing overdoses and overdose deaths. Overdoses and related deaths have impacted our community on a critical level, with the number of fentanyl overdoses and related deaths in 2023 expected to supersede those of 2022. To date, in 40 fentanyl-related overdoses, with 10 resulting in death. If these numbers continue this trend, by the end of the year, the community could have nearly 100 fentanyl-related overdoses and 25 related deaths. This does not take into consideration the other types of overdoses and related deaths that impact our community daily. To effectively begin addressing this issue, our community needs to take a multidisciplinary approach with collaboration from not only community partners that are directly involved with substance misuse and addiction, but all stakeholders in our community. Stakeholders are people that have shared interest in a mission. That means all of us that live in this community are stakeholders, and each and every one must come together to defeat substance misuse, addiction, and the negative effects it has on the community. Through the fund that was secured through the National Opioid Settlement, the Center for Addiction Recovery of Henderson would like to develop a harm reduction in substance misuse educational program for Henderson County. The mission of this program is to empower the community through informational initiatives that will increase awareness and understanding of substance misuse, the impacts of substance misuse and addiction in the community, improve attitudes toward persons directly and indirectly affected from substance misuse and addiction, and improve utilization of community harm reduction resources while promoting creation of resources. The primary objectives of this program are to decrease overdoses and related deaths, enhance knowledge and understanding of substance misuse and addiction, improve utilization of harm reduction resources, create new harm reduction resources, and increase the number of stakeholders engaged in harm reduction and prevention initiatives in the community. The program being developed for our community will target those in our community that are most greatly impacted by substance use and addiction. These are typically identified as parents, caregivers, and family unit members. A public relation educational initiative will be the primary focus of this program. A multifaceted campaign is needed to reach our community. It will involve meeting with stakeholders in various sectors and communities in our county, media collaboration, and social media connections. The goal is to make information and resources as readily accessible to the community as possible. The key to this campaign is to embrace the motto that knowledge is power. Knowledge is the vital component this community needs to empower each of us to take action to get ahead of this crisis and defeat substance misuse and addiction. And on a personal note, it seems very fitting for me to be sharing this with you on this date. 4 months ago today, my wife, Officer Janet Gatton, lost her battle with cancer. She made me promise before she passed that I would find a way to return to Henderson to help the community that she passionately protected and served for over 20 years. So with her example in mind, I will use this opportunity to passionately serve this community and help all of us work together to address and defeat addiction.
Thank you. Thank you. And we certainly understand the issue. And again, I'm really pleased that they've taken to lead this effort.
Thank you.
For those of you who might not know, Angie, you head up Humane Society here and also oversee our animal control efforts and did outstanding work while she was there. So I know you'll be just as effective in this role.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Angie?
No, just comment, just to tag on to what you said. I know Angie's been around us quite some time, and I applaud you for your services
Thank you.
that you've done. You're going to
Thank you.
continue to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions of Angie? Again, we've agreed on this before this meeting, but we now have a formal resolution. We have a formal memorandum of understanding with the city and Angie's organization as to the required functions of the office based on the opioid settlement guidelines, measurable outcomes, various strategies. And I think both Steve Gold and City Attorney Don Kelsey worked very hard to nail that down and get us to this point. Anything that
Along with Angie, she, you know, it was an idea when it was initially presented and it wasn't all that nailed down, but Angie's really worked hard to turn it into an actual program that's going to have some real deliverables. And I think she's already done a whole lot of work.
Very fortunate to have.
I know I feel better about it now that I see her.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
And look forward to hearing the progress reports as we go further into
Absolutely.
and how you're reaching out to all the different parts of the community, partnering with the media and other agencies.
Absolutely.
So with that, we'll read the resolution and get this underway formally. Thank you.
Resolution approving memorandum of understanding between the city of Henderson, Henderson County Fiscal Court, and the Center for Addiction Recovery of Henderson Incorporated, and authorizing the county judge executive to execute all necessary documents. Whereas both Henderson Fiscal Court and the city of Henderson, Kentucky have received funding from the National Opioid Settlement to be used to combat the opioid crisis in Henderson County. And whereas pursuant to KRS 15.291.522, the use of these funds to provide public education about opioids is an appropriate expenditure of these funds. And whereas the Center for Addiction Recovery of Henderson Incorporated has been in existence and provided services to individuals struggling with addiction to their families since 2011. And whereas since January 1st, 2023, there have been over 40 fentanyl-related overdoses in Henderson County. And whereas the Center for Addiction Recovery developed a public education program wherein it will provide education on the dangers of misuse targeting opioids, specifically fentanyl, to the parents, guardians, carers, and family unit members of school and college-age dependents living in Henderson County. And whereas Henderson County and the city of Henderson whereas Henderson County and the city of Henderson to the implementation of the Center for Addiction Recovery Public Education Program jointly in the amount of $6,000 to be borne equally by each government entity. And whereas the Henderson Fiscal Court would like to partner with Henderson to support for addiction recovery public education program using funds received from National Opioid Settlement, and the parties desire to memorialize agreement as outlined in attached memorandum of understanding and to comply with both state law and regulation upon how the opioid settlement funds can be spent. Now therefore be resolved by the Henderson Fiscal Court as follows. 1, memorandum of understanding between the city of Henderson, Henderson County Court, and the Center for Addiction Recovery of Henderson Incorporated is hereby approved. 2, this county judge executive is hereby directed to execute the agreement on behalf of Henderson Fiscal Court and is further directed to execute any and all other necessary and documents required to effectuate the intent thereof. 3, the Henderson County Treasurer is hereby directed to provide funding for the Center for Addiction Recovery Education Program in the amount of $30,000 from Henderson County's National Opioid Settlement Funds in compliance with the attached memorandum of understanding, ARS 1.291.5B22, and all applicable laws.
Get a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion?
My apologies to Mr. Weiss, and that should have said wish to fund rather than with to fund. Fat fingers when I was typing.
Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. and
Thanks, Andy.
Good luck. Next, we have an annual, we are fixing salaries and positions for the county. Saw the list. Any other questions about those? So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve fixing salaries and positions.
Resolution.
After we read the resolution.
Resolution relating to Henderson County Fiscal Court reappointing county employees for fiscal year 2023-2024. Whereas the judge executive is authorized to reappoint County employees with approval of fiscal court pursuant to KRS 67.7107. Whereas pursuant to KRS 64.30, fiscal court wishes to fix the reasonable compensation of every county officer and employee except those named in KRS 64.535. Whereas the statute requires that the fiscal court fix the reasonable compensation of all employees, even elected officials, are not specifically. Now therefore be it resolved by the fiscal court county of Henderson County, Kentucky as follows: pursuant to KRS 64.530, the reasonable compensation of all full-time, part-time, and seasonal employees of the county other than employees enumerated in KRS 64.535 is fixed accordance to the attached list of employees and their compensation, which is attached hereto and incorporated herein.
Need a motion to
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now for the next 2 hours, we will bring Nick Stallings up. Talk about the many things going on in the room. Hopefully it won't take 2 hours, just kidding, but I will start with some declaration of surplus.
All right, we got the first probably 3 weeks ago, we got a new grader 40 to replace our aging 120. So this piece of equipment, I'm looking to surplus out, put it on govdeals.com. Also our older grader, Gradall, the XL 100, looking to put that on GovDeals to get that sold also. We've got a DR trimmer that was purchased about 3 years ago for some trimming of brush out at Stanley Watkins Park. Since then, we've got it to where we can mow it with our riding mowers and weed eaters. So that's a pretty expensive piece of equipment just to sit back in the shed, not being used. So looking to, we don't have any other options to use that on the parks or roads. So that's going to be a nice piece to get out the door to recoup some of its original purchase price. Also, we have a mosquito sprayer. We used to do that 3 times a week at nights. We've had trouble the last couple of years of finding people that want to stay certified and also only work 3 nights a week. What we've done within the last month, I've talked with the city public works director, Brian Williams, and I got from him their pest control people, which is Action Pest Control. So what they did was piggyback on their track, and when we're using them to also do the county now. What this option did is the health department has money set aside. They used to reimburse us for the actual driver and the mosquito dope to pay for all that. What we did was call them what the price was is somewhere around $12,000 to do the whole entire year of abatement for mosquitoes. So now they're actually just taking the invoice. It's cheaper for them. It's cheaper for us. We actually don't have to worry about that liability we have having somebody spraying 3 nights a week. Action Pest Control does the city and the county all in one group effort. So they can break the city and county up into the sections and do it once a week like they're supposed to, like they should be, to keep the mosquitoes kind of under control the best we can. So we have that piece of equipment that we're looking to sell. Also, a lot of counties out in the United States that want to use it have the ability to now. It's a good machine. We just don't have the need for it anymore.
Nick, just out of curiosity, have we just been leaving that 40,000? I think that's what the health department sets aside in their budget. We haven't been using any of it.
We've been using a little over 10,000 to buy the equipment.
Ourselves.
Yes, and we all do ourselves, and go because they don't want to be under the point of having to hire a person to go through the training. The biggest problem about mosquito spraying is to keep the person trained. They gotta have some pretty heavy license to be able to spray this chemical. Well, a lot of times we'd use somebody who was retired that person passed 2 or 3 years ago. So then we were trying to use some younger people that want to come in and just work, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, or Monday, Thursday, Friday. That was getting kind of hard to do. We couldn't use any of our employees because if it rained, a rain out, then they got the next day. So we couldn't keep somebody with 40 hours to stay with work with us, leave early, come in and spray at night for direct kill. So it was got to be kind of a shuffle match trying to find who we could hire. So what we did was I talked to Brian Williams. City had the same thing a couple years ago. They went to Action Pest Control to start doing their spray. So I talked with Jennifer over at Action Pest Control, told her what our normal routes were. Here we did. Here's how much we sprayed. Here's our areas. Here's our popular areas. And she came back with a price around around 1,000, which almost what we were paying for the mosquito dope on the side. Just trying to take care of it. It was a win-win for everybody. Now they don't have to stop at the city lines, city limits anymore, and they can do the county, so they can actually break their quadrants up in a lot better rotation. So
Thank you.
that's it. That's the three.
Any other
that's what we-
questions, Nick?
The great all, that
That's the oldest grade all we have, the old gray one. We tried to sell last year when we were selling a couple pieces, and we didn't get enough interest in it. I don't know if it's time of year or what. Typically they get pretty good interest, but this one didn't. So we're going to put it right back on in the bill again to try to get sold.
So right now we have 3.
Right now, this is a 4. We are
Okay.
4. 3 we have running.
Okay.
And this one is our old, it runs, no problem with it. It's just getting phased out with its hours.
Any other questions? And with your forbearance, I don't want to put it on Kurt to read another complete resolution. I think we can read the summary and understand what's going on here. And the only thing I'd say is I'm really interested in this contract with Action Pest, see how they do.
Yes.
And would you ask either the city or perhaps you can partner up? I'd love to keep track of when they're spraying, how often they're spraying,
Yes.
because this will be the time of year when I get called about it. So it'd be good to have that information so I can relay it.
Yes, and that's what I've worked out with Jennifer is there's a phone number we can call and an email. They're gonna go do proactive, trying to knock out places, but also gonna be reactive. If we get a phone call saying, hey, this subdivision is having trouble, they'll put that on a next day's route.
Okay.
So they send me the logs, kind of what they went through, and then I'm gonna talk with her, see if I can get kind of the next week after. This is what we're trying to get to. So.
Thank you. So read the summary.
A resolution declaring certain county property to be surplus and providing for the disposition thereof.
Get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Get a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, get some bid openings.
All right, we got Scott Murphy.
And this is for the Hatchet Mill
And this is
Bridge.
for the Hatchet Mill, removal of the old structure and replacing the new structure. This was a couple courts ago, but the price is a little more than what we had in the budget. So I changed a few things out there on the bids to kind of lessen the contract load. Hopefully we would get some smaller prices. So Scott Murphy's got for cost of all labor, equipment, materials, which include rebar, grout, and the lumber for the formwork. Total price of contract or the county is $258,253. That is their price. To complete the project. Next in line, we got Hazix. Hazix, their price for labor materials is $224,634.29. And they both, between Hazix and they both have about the same work days. Hazix has an extra 2 weeks from their completion time for the construction. And then the third one is from M&G. M&G, their cost for labor and materials is in the construction is $186,590.
Nick, this is complete, ready to drive on when they're those prices?
Yes.
Wow, that's nothing, just wow, that's, don't understand the discrepancy there, but.
Yeah, this is what entails with this bridge. It's a little more work being done with it than the last couple that Bill had done, which was BF Overfield and Cooper. They were just strictly rip out the old bridge, put a new one back. And build both abutments and then set the steel beams and the steel grading deck. This one, the alignment's kind of off. We've got to kind of realign the ditch over the years. The floor has really beat on the south abutment of Hatchet Mill. So we've got to take the old bridge out. Got to move north, kind of the bridge up, and then realign the in stream and outstream there. So there's a little bit more construction, more excavation, more work need to be done to be able to get this. It's a pretty big bridge. We got pretty long span. The original span right now is like 24 feet. We're extending that to 40. What that's going to do is I'll water flow through, and then we should not get the restriction we had before to cause the scour we had on the abutment. So there's a little bit more involved in this to put this in. So that's the reason we've got elevated prices. So what I'll do is I'll go back and look at all these and make sure, there's something egregious not lost, not forgot about in these bids. And then and then we'll make the recommendation. So I was hoping to get this done in the summer around school traffic, but not going to work. Obviously now they're bidding and the school's been out for a few weeks. With what it's going to take a little longer than 8 weeks to get it done. So, but with what everybody's showing for construction time frame, it's going to be that long. So we're going to work out we got a pretty good detour scheduled. It's not much. There's not much. The way Hatchet Mill, Cheney Road, and some of those actually work, you're really not changing your drive time up at all. So fortunately it's a good detour.
So he'll bring back a recommendation next meeting,
Yes.
hopefully. And any questions of Nick further? And you'd like to hire a new driver? Can you describe that to me?
Yes, we've got, we're still trying to pick the drivers that we.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll go ahead and finish that. We skipped the salt auction.
Got it. Yep, that's what I was looking for. We actually wanted to hire a new driver. Her name's Rogers Goins Rogers. She's been a school bus driver for for a long time, and she's already got AL, and she's interested in trying to get something that's more full-time work. She's been around trucks. She actually owned a dump truck and ran rock and sand and dirt for years down around in Masco. And she's looking to join the county's crew. So
What would her pay be?
her pay will be $18.50, and then after her 90 days, then it will be, I think it'd be the new rate that was on that sheet that you all have. So we typically start about at $18.50, give them their after their if they get done with their probation, then they will move them up. Yes.
I move we accept Nick's recommended hiring.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Your salt auction recommendation.
All right. We had I got this on my email. Okay, we just had our auction for the salt. We typically get around 250 tons a year is what we try to take. This year, 3 bidders came in. IBG Magic Kentuckiana came in at $146 a ton. Cargill Road Safety Salt Incorporated, they came in at $108 a ton. And then Compass Materials of America came in at 107. So these if you all have a pretty good memory from what they were in the last few years, these prices are a lot really elevated. A lot of things has went up over $100 a ton for salt. It's kind of scary, but we had 3 bids. They were 2 of them within earshot of each other. So it's just the way things are coming to now. But I recommend is to use Compass, that, they were the lowest bid, for.
And this is a bulk delivery, right? It's not on demand.
Nope. This is, I call, we just had about 109 tons brought in 2 weeks ago. They ship it in, haul it. They put it our salt dome and people push it up. So it's pretty easy. They got a couple trucks a day. It doesn't take a lot of our workforce out.
So you have a recommendation? Compass Group at $107.50 per ton. Any other questions? You get a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Nick.
All right.
If you recall, the Representative Boys and Girls Club came to us with some beyond the money that we had informally committed to their capital campaign, which we are going to be settling here probably after second meeting in June. And I think I sent out a reminder of what that list was, and also got a prioritized list of these from Bill Fiddler, one of the representatives who met with us. After reviewing itself, I know that the 3D printer request was their top priority, and the least expensive of their requests was the DoBots, which were, I think, on the top 3 or 4 of the priority list. And then we all noticed that the drug prevention and parent involvement piece, the teen programming at $5,250, fit pretty well with the purpose of our the opioid settlement funds, and could possibly be funded out of that pool of. But I wanted to check back with the court after reviewing this list and see if anybody else had any thoughts. I guess by saying what I'm saying about the 3D printers and the DoBots is I would feel very comfortable about providing some funding for those activities. We can do that this fiscal year, and maybe check back with the contingent from Boys and Girls, say on these other items. We may revisit these, or perhaps they can approach other entities about those. Don't want to close the door entirely, but for now, I would propose maybe we spend the money on the items mentioned, but I'm open to thoughts and any input from the court.
Judge, I would agree with you on because when he prioritized that list, you know, we need to give them something that's going to be in the front end of this when they get up and running real good so that they can use some of the facility, you know, and I like the idea that we revisit it at some point. We do the DoBots and the 3D printers, and the opioid money going to the Too Good for Drugs program they got. So again, I like that. What you're thinking, I agree. You know, and I think it was less than, I think, 8,000, actually, not counting the opioids.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yep, I'm comfortable supporting that.
I'm good with it as well. And like you had mentioned, it's really a no-brainer to be able to use our opioid funds for the drug program. One thing, I did go to the club in Owensboro yesterday just to see firsthand how this is working over there. And it's pretty impressive. I would just invite anybody, even anyone in the public that would want to check that out. It's pretty exciting to see what we eventually, hopefully we'll have here in Henderson to offer our youth as well. But even though it was at the bottom of the list, that esports gaming center, how it was explained to me, they put together a team. People have to try out for this, and they will practice during the week, and on weekends, they send their team to another community boys and girls club, and they have a competition. So they compete through this, they can actually compete for college scholarships. And in fact, they've got their youth already that are going to school on those scholarships. One's training to be a brain surgeon. So to me, I thought that's pretty, and it teaches them team building. It also teaches socialization skills. It's actually getting them out to other communities and meet other youth about their age and their interest. And what was really kind of interesting is that the military supports esports because of the eye-hand coordination, right, Kurt? And some of the other things that it does. So even though it was kind of down on the list, to me, that was almost right up there with the workforce development aspect that we're talking about here this morning too. So just a thought.
How much more was that?
4,800. It was one of, again, the lower cost.
And again, anything we choose not to fund right now, today. We
Yeah,
can revisit.
exactly.
We can revisit. Any other thoughts? If it sounds like there was support for this initial proposal that I threw out, and we could do that pretty quickly, I believe. Mr. Gold, would it take another MOU with the Boys and Girls Club to get the opioid funding for this particular
Yes,
number on the list?
for any expenditure of the opioid funding, there would need to be an MOU.
Okay, can, as we approve these, can we if we vote this way, make the funding of that program contingent on you creating an acceptable MOU?
I'll get in touch with their council and get something together. Now that we've got a framework on those MOUs.
Right, it helps. Get better practice in that. So if I can get a little assistance, I'd entertain a motion to approve funding both the 3D printers request in this list, the Do Robots request list, and the team programming for drug prevention and parent involvement on this list, understanding that that last item will be funded out of opioid funds pending proper MOU arrangement with the Boys and Girls Club.
So moved.
Judge, if I could just put something on the record, I've been quiet, but I just want to disclose publicly, I'm trustee of the Cliff Hagen Boys and Girls Club. If the fiscal court would feel more comfortable having somebody else draft that MOU or something like that due to any sort of conflict or anything, I would certainly
I don't see a
not be
conflict.
offended by that. I just
Doesn't
wanted
bother
to
me.
disclose and make sure everybody was
Appreciate
completely
that.
aware.
It's a technical document. I
Just want
don't,
to make sure.
Well, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
So. Do you, do. I think we might ought to look at what Bill was saying and add the other to it. And then. We're done. For a length of time. I mean, I'm not saying we're done forever, but if we add it.
As
I
long
was
as,
pretty
as long as,
impressed.
as long as we cut and don't leave the door, open, you know what I mean?
Yes, that's what that's
Yeah,
what I mean.
absolutely. I don't have any problem with that.
And that's the sense I get from, these types of things. It's not going to be a reoccurring type of thing.
Well, I would say that for nonprofits throughout the community, require are almost always reoccurring
Well,
in some form or another, because just the nature of what they do. We can always just address those as they come. We've talked about creating a fund that we give to a third party to requests, and we can take examples like this and ask them to go through that process. Always be asked for help with nonprofit projects. It's always been true, and even the ones outside the ones we budget for, and that's always been true. Butch has been here longer than I have, but it just always occurs, and understandably. But so when you say door, because it won't happen again.
I guess it'd be easier for me to say no then.
Well, I'm just saying.
I'm just saying,
yeah.
my point was saying, okay, for this fiscal year, this is our capacity for being able to donate.
Well, but
if we
this
do all
fiscal year
this.
has 3 more weeks. Are you also saying next?
Yes, I'm
fiscal-
sorry.
Yeah.
The.
Coming year.
Yeah. Well, we have a motion and a second, but we can amend the if somebody wants to. reiterate that.
I'll move to amend that if we can add the esports gaming center to the previous motion.
I'll second.
Without any thoughts?
Okay, so moved.
Because he
Okay.
made the original motion.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have an amended motion, second to that.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, and a second. Any other discussion? I would suspect the Boys and Girls will be very pleased with this outcome.
And your point that they're getting money from other resources as well, that this isn't the only ask out there, so.
Well, what they said at the last, when they approached us, is they have not asked any other entity yet for
Right,
this list.
right.
Well,
I
I hope
would-
that's changed.
I would hope they,
Not for those specific items. But yes,
Not-
operationally, they're, it's a several $100,000 a year operation. So they got a lot of ask out there.
any other questions, any other discussion? We can't afford this, coming up with these funds this fiscal year, not a problem. And I'll get with Brenda about
Okay.
do that for next fiscal court meeting. We'll the official requesting claims next fiscal court meeting. That's the opioid fund separately, depending on the MOU. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I appreciate the
thanks.
discussion. You have in your packets the sheriff's tax settlements dating back to January to April under Sheriff Stoffer. Any questions about those?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You also have the normal sheriff's report from Stoffer. This is the monthly normal sheriff's report. Anything to add to that, Mr. Duncan? Get a motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Gold, your report.
Got several checks today, Judge. First is interest check in the amount of $160.82. Jail fees collected, $276.75. Reimbursement for county budget employees, $5,142.11. Flow through from the city, $458.33. Aflac, $203.66, dental and life, $508.21 and $13.89. County budget employees, health insurance, $8,077 and $649, bringing today's total to $15,789.77. And the total fiscal year to date, $220,244.41.
Motion to approve those.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Gold, and I'll call Treasurer Ryder up. We're going to have second reading of the 23-24 budget. And I will then pay huge compliments to the court, department heads, and other elected officials on efficiently moving through this process. I cannot recall a year since I've been on the court that we were able to get this done by the first fiscal court meeting in June. So it was very efficient, very smooth, and I appreciate it. And Treasurer Ryder.
This is the reading of the proposed budget for fiscal year 2024. This budget has been approved by DLG, Department of Local Government, as to form and clarification. The total amount of the budget revenues with corresponding expenses, $33,913,189.35. The breakdowns are as follows: general fund, $10,574,487.03. Road fund, $5,520,756.70. Jail fund, $8,663,358. LGEA, Local Government Economic Assistance Fund, $739,878. State Grants Fund, $1,240,700. Federal Grants Fund, $0. Economic Development Fund, $110,000. Clerk, SB 135 Permanent Storage Fund, $21,000. Employee Health Insurance Fund, $2,163,768. Opioid Settlement Fund, $31,328. ARPA Fund, American Rescue Plan Act, $4,842,971.04. Total amount of the budget is $33,913,189.35.
Ooh. It's bigger every.
Move to approve, Judge.
Second.
A motion and a second. Thank you, Treasurer Ryder, for your work on this as well. I appreciate it. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
You have received the transfers and they are as presented, and this is redistributing appropriations within the existing budget, and it is clearing up any negatives towards the end of the fiscal year.
Couple points about this. Both my salary and other constitutional officers in some cases are set by the state. They don't set those until January 1 of each year. Meanwhile, we operate on a July 1, June 30th fiscal year. So we have to guess at the beginning of the fiscal year what the state might do. And then whatever happens on January 1, we adjust from there. So that's why mine needs a little bit more to make up. I think in the case of the county engineer, we had a little bit of overlap between
There
Bill
was.
Hubiak's salary and Nick. So for a while there, we were paying two county judges at a time. That's why that's overrun. See just a little bit of overage with the county attorney, and the rest are pretty, I think, pretty understandable. Any questions about these? And again, as it is pointed out on the list, we just paid or are about to approve $122,000 for the replacing a boiler door, which should be reimbursed by the state. That won't hit until next fiscal year, right?
The revenue will
Yeah.
next fiscal year, yes.
So if no other questions, get a motion to approve the transfers.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say
Aye.
any opposed?
I have names from the general fund to First National Bank of Omaha, $1,887.69. This is election expenses and is to come from voting machines, transporting and material supplies appropriation lines. To HFI Harold Fish Incorporated, $122,051. This is, as the judge previously explained, for the boiler replacement at the Judicial Center and is eligible for the AOC reimbursement. To Lowe's, $653.30. Supplies for court, and this is to come from courthouse renewals and Judicial Center renewals and repairs appropriation line. To Tom DeMar and Sons, $5,546.41. This is for the labor and materials for the handicap door openers for the courthouse and is to come from courthouse renewals and repairs. This is also eligible for a grant reimbursement through CAECO, and we will receive $1,600 of this back as a grant. To Bruce Farmer, $4,679.08. This is for the training incentive for this current fiscal year, be paid with the June 22nd, 2023 pay, and is to come from the coroner's training incentive appropriation line. This is also contingent upon the completion of the training hours for this week. From the road fund to Nick Stallings, $2,227.50. This is for reimbursement of training expenses and is to come from the county engineer training travel appropriation line. To Paul Miller Ford, $63,915. This is a 2023 Ford F-550 purchase. The purchase was approved at a prior meeting and is to come from the new machinery equipment appropriation line. From the jail fund to Advanced Document Solutions, $893.33. This is for copier charges and is to come from data processing equipment appropriation line. To Don Franklin, $41,095. This is for a 2023 Ford Explorer. The purchase was approved at a prior meeting and is to come from the motor vehicles appropriation line. To US Bank, which is the credit card, $1,357.90. The majority of this is to come from training, conferences, and office supplies appropriation lines. That's all.
Any other
Vote to pay
questions?
the claims.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In old business, hopefully by next fiscal court meeting, we will be ready to vote on proposed change to the solar farm ordinance that was suggested by Taylor Tompkins and approved by the commission. We'll be thinking about that next meeting, and we should also have hopefully ready to vote on some adjustments to the construction permit fee schedule and the electrical inspection fee schedule. So just heads up on those. We've talked a little bit about them in the past, and so we're just about ready to do that. Anybody else have any old business hanging out there? If not, we'll turn to good of the county, and something tells me property valuation administrator has something for good of the county.
You guys just approved spending a lot of money, so I'm asked for some more. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not doing that. I did tell that to my staff, though, under false pretenses to get them in here. If you don't know my staff, we're missing two, but this is the people that serve you in the bottom floor in the property value administrator's office. We're missing Rachel, who's a part-time employee, works from home. Also, we have Julie Bugman, who is on vacation today. But I don't want to belabor. I know it's been a long meeting, but I wanted, we've I had the honor the last couple of years to be on the board for the Kentucky PVA Association. And through that have gotten involved with statewide initiatives as along with some advocacy roles. But one thing I'm really proud of is I'm now in my, I guess, started second term, just as some of you all have, or started new terms and learned a lot over these last 4.5 years. One thing I've learned probably more than anything is just how good I have it because of how good my staff is. I work with unquestionably, I'm speaking from experience, bias also included, the best PVA staff in the Commonwealth, and I'm very thankful for all of them. We had training at our summer PVA Association Summer Conference last week in Lexington, and had the honor, she doesn't know this yet, and so that's why I'm bringing it in front of you all. We've had a deputy be named Deputy of the Year for Western Kentucky. The first judicial district is how we base that off of, and the Terry Bennett XL Deputy Award. She's a long-term Madison County PVA that advocated for wage parity for deputies and things like that. Of course, we're state employees. So it's got county in our name, but it's always a weird relationship working with Frankfurt. But anyway, I wanted to take a moment in open court, and if you'll humor me, Dolores Carter has been named the District Deputy of the Year. You come take a picture. So don't drop this. This is solid glass, apparently. We're so proud of you. Your picture?
Absolutely.
This way. Step up here.
Yeah. Congratulations. Yeah.
That's not gonna happen. All right. Anyway, thank you very much. You just budget, we put second most revenue on this year as part of our quad, last year being the most. So market's still way up. So when somebody tells you the market's down, tell them that's not true. But if you need anything else, we're here to serve. We'll be in the
Thank you,
basement.
Andrew.
Thank you, sir.
Well, congratulations, Dolores. I truly appreciate you. Especially early in my tenure here, I tended to go around the house telling really corny dad jokes. And Dolores always laughed, whether she thought they were funny or not. She always humored me. So that kind of attitude, I know translates in the customer service that the PVA office offers our community, not even to mention your technical expertise and obvious. So thank you for being you, and congratulations on a very well-deserved award. Treasurer Ryder, you act like you have something to say. Did we miss something?
I strangle the county engineer.
No, you may not.
There was a claim that was overlooked. I need to ask to pay A plus tree service, $10,812. This is for tree removal. Nick, what is this for? Okay. And it's the maintenance and repairs equipment appropriation line in the road fund.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have motion. Is all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thanks.
Thank you, Brenda.
Anything else for good of the county? With that, we'll go around the horn. Master Southern.
They're getting that reward. It kind of what kind of employees we at the county level. We got some awesome employees. We get a lot of compliments from people that take care of our people, and makes our job easy when they're doing their job well. So congratulations to her again. My heart goes out to Angela and her family. I imagine it's just, prayers with her, and all's good in District 3.
Thank you, Master Tompkins.
Yes, sir. Just like to echo thoughts and prayers and love to the family of Angela Comer. Steady as she goes, too. Thank you, sir.
Master Putman.
Thank you, Judge. Just, again, our recognition across the state, we got a recognized member of Mr. Gold as well. So, just Tim saying it's, seems like we got a pretty good footprint across the state with our employees. And again, thoughts and prayers go with the Comer family. All's good and forth.
Master Starks.
Thank you, Judge. And I've only been up here a short period of time, but I already knew working in the public what a really kind of a tight-knit group this is here in county government. And like you say, Tim, we've got some really great people, and they do fantastic work day in and day out. So we appreciate them. But again, it's with heavy hearts that we're all here today with the Comer family. And it kind of really hits close because my sons grew up with them. I actually directed the 8th grade play there at Holy Name when they were in school. So I just can't say how much sorrow we have for that loss. So please keep them in your prayers. But everything else was good to end the meeting, I think, on a high note with that recognition. So congratulations. And that's all that we have from the 5th.
Master Barry.
Thank you, Judge. Same thing, prayers, thoughts and prayers with the Comers. And Angie, that was a great presentation, I have to say. You've done a good job. Thank you so kindly, and I know you're going to do a good job. That we have something that some of us have been to before. The new guys know the Independence Bank Tractor Drive fundraiser is coming up June 25th. And for the new guys, I always take my trailer and tractor, and I got banners made. Of course, banners that no longer, they're not any good anymore. So I don't have banners. Can I send you a picture of them? I had a connection. One of my renters made those banners, but he don't do that anymore. So you would probably have to get a banner. They're not very big, this long, about this tall, and you'll see what's on. I'll send you a picture of one of them. If y'all would like to get, I don't know if you can get one made by then or not. I just got a call from the bank the other day that was coming up, and I was gone and I didn't get the mail, wasn't home to get the mail. So you probably can. Maybe Tony down there would probably make them. They're not expensive. They're not big. The judge has been. Then you go with us, or were you gone? Have you been? You've been, haven't you?
I've seen it.
Steve has.
Yeah.
It's good to it.
I actually drove in it here. First time I was on the train.
Yeah, so we started to call you with the time. I don't have the time, but it's on Sunday, the 25th. I think Bushton, we usually leave about 10,
About
maybe
10.
10 a.m., something like that.
And there's a feed. They
Yeah,
stop
and
and
I
feed.
always pay the fee this time.
I think you said there's a feed.
There's a feed. Oh, you say
Feed.
feed. Oh, a
feed.
feed. There is a fee and a feed. So, but I pay the entry fee, and Tim's been. So it's just, it's for the cancer.
Yeah, it's very good.
deal.
Cause.
It's a good call. So, and I'll call each one out, seeing you guys. So I'll find out the time today and I can tell you. And I'll let Steve and the judge, everybody know if I don't see them, but think about it. And it's a good time. We'll go and have fun.
Good deal.
Judge, that's District 1's good. We're
Good deal.
good. Sorry.
Sign made professionally. Feel free to use your magic markers and sprinkles and all that glitter. It makes really one special. You know?
I'll say this, the public library has a nice printer now
Yeah.
that we might be able to
You go hog
incorporate.
wild if you really wanted to.
It's a certain size because it
Mhm.
fits you. I can put it on the trailer. I made it. So
It is a good time and it's a great way to see the county.
it is.
Really
It is.
It's moving slow.
Yep.
Slow.
Mr. Gold?
You know, as Dolores was honored very very deservedly so. You know, I was thinking, like you said, about her customer service and how she's always got that smile. So congratulations
And I was thinking about a fellow that used to sit in the judge's chair, colorful phrase whenever he talked about what we do in the county. He said, we're in the people business. And Dolores gets that. And that got me thinking about Angela Comer, and what she does for the people here in this building that are in the people business. And, my heart really goes out to her and her family. And, she does so much for all of us through all the human resources stuff, through taking care of people when they're needing the employee assistance plan and things like that. And just heart goes out to her and everything she's going through, and prayers for peace and understanding for her and her family. We do have a interesting week ahead for the county. We've got the WC Handy Blues and Barbecue Festival happening, beginning. There were lunch breaks yesterday. There's some today and tomorrow, and then music Wednesday and Thursday nights, and then Friday and Saturday noon until just about midnight. Thank you to Magistrate Barry for coming out and volunteering. He's going to be making a flying trip back, and Nick is too. Yeah, so we've got county showing up. I think Renisa and her daughter are going to be doing it on Thursday night. Come out and get some red beans and rice. That's the big fundraiser. That Thursday night is really what determines one of the big things that determines whether or not we're able to have a festival next year. So if you come out and get you a andouille sausage or some jambalaya or something like that, it would really help out. Other than that, things are good in the county attorney's office.
We're going to make some arrangements here. Yeah. Which, leads me to my comments, and I appreciate Magistrate Starks mentioning the kind of group we have and how we relate to one another. I think in the courthouse as a whole, I think, and hopefully some of the people out there still in the will attest to the fact that we have a really good, we get along well, and we support each other, and we do everything we can to make sure we get our jobs done because we care about doing it correctly. And in my office, that is especially true. And in many respects, as cliche as it can be sometimes, we really are a family. And when a family member has something terrible happen to them, it affects us all. It really does affect us all. But I take comfort in the fact that as a family who care about one another, we can collective arms around Angela as best we can, and in our way help her get through this. I don't expect her to be back anytime soon because they need to work through all the things they need to work out with this. But when she does, I'm sure it will be hopefully cathartic to get back among her other family here, and we will do all we can to make that she's feeling good about being back and ready to kind of move on, as hard as that is. So it's been a tough week. It's been a tough week for all of us. And we can't even imagine what the Comer family has went through. In addition to Angela, Kenny and their other son, Cody, and Hadley, and their other Tyler. Now I think about them too. So visitation is today starting at 2:00 at Holy Name. I believe the funeral is tomorrow at 11 at Holy Name. I know there will be a lot of people at both of those functions. To get a chance, even if you can't, to send Angela a text. I know she's accepting text, seeing text. So feel free. And the staff will be doing a couple things to help memorialize Hunter. And there's nothing that's quite adequate in a situation like this, but she's family, so we're going to take care of family. Good luck, Handy Fest. Good luck at the KCJEA and Magistrates and Commissioners Conference. Be careful traveling, and I hope that is a good conference. Yeah, Kurt has some handy tickets, Check with him if you'd like to avail yourself of those and enjoy it. I will be out of town, but thinking about you all and really hoping for great weather and great success for the Handy Fest again this year. And that is all I have. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
You have motion and a second. All those in favor can't leave.